Start, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Pavitra, Assistant Professor, Department of CSE, Presidency University, would like to welcome you all for today's webinar on the next generation 5G by Mr. K. Vasantakumar, Business Leader in Telecom Electronics Industry. Uh, we would like to welcome all the participants. And it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Nisar Ahmad Sir, Chancellor, Presidency University, Chairman, Presidency Group of Institutions in his absentia. A warm welcome to Dr. D. Subakar, Vice Chancellor, Dr. A. M. Surendra Kumar, Pro Vice Chancellor and Dean SOE, Dr. C. Kalayasan Sir, Associate Dean SOE in absentia. I would like to welcome Dr. K.G. Mohan Sir, Professor and Head, Department of CSE, Presidency University. Doctor, I would like to welcome Dr. T.K. Divakaran Sir, Professor and IEEE Faculty Coordinator, Department of CSE. It's my privilege to welcome today's speaker for this webinar, Mr. Vasanta Kumar. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Yes, sir. One second. Still we have, sir, agenda we have. It's my privilege to introduce today's speaker, Mr. K. Vasantakumar, business leader in telecom electronic industry. He is a well-experienced and seasoned technical leader with 2.5 decades of rich experience in telecom, datacom products, network and services engineering, network operations, service delivery, smart city, defense, indigenation, supply chain management and manufacturing. Sir has completed Masters in Business Administration from Sikkim Manipal University and Bachelor's in Engineering from NIE. He is currently working as solutions consultant and supporting small product companies bid for defense indigenation products. He has worked for companies like Kenis Technologies, Tejas Networks Limited, Reliance Infocom, Infosys Technologies Limited, Indian Air Force. He also worked on overseas assignments for Cisco Systems and Aviat Networks. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Dear all, we are aware of applications of 5G, emerging technology, and we are going to understand importance of one such emerging technology today. I request HOD Sir, Dr. K.G. Mohan Sir, to welcome today's resource person. Sir.
Good morning to everybody. I wish all the participants a happy new year, and it gives me immense pleasure to just say a few words. I will not take much time because I would like to hear more from the expert. Say in the last 2 decades, the telecom division and the telecom products have made great revolution in the communication and computing domains. So we felt that this is good to have an interaction with the industry expert, which gives the what is the future and the technology ahead tomorrow that we have for tomorrow, and emerging technologies we would like to hear from the expert. So in this regard, the IEEE student chapter from Presidency University has made an effort to arrange this webinar. So on behalf of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, and also on behalf of the leadership team of the Presidency University, I wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Vasant Kumar, the business leader, the telecom, say, and electronic industry, which is a lot of wide research and wide, say, industry experience. So he has come here, so and he has accepted our invitation. So on behalf of the department and presidency university leadership, I welcome Mr. Vasant Kumar for this webinar. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Over to the next.
Yes, sir. Thank you, HOD, sir, for your valuable words. Dear participants, I have a small announcement. Please post any queries in chat window. All queries will be addressed in the end. Please do not forget to fill feedback link. Certificate will be shared within 2-3 days. Over to speaker Mr. K. Vasant Kumar to start this event. Sir, kindly start the session.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, and wholeheartedly I would like to wish you all a very happy, healthy, safe and successful New Year 2021. Yeah, we all heard about 5G, so time to know what is 5G all about. What was the objective with which it was conceived? What are the technologies that drive it? What is today's status? And then finally, I would be happy to answer a few questions on it. Let's first, before we go into 5G, let us understand what used to happen before 5G, because that will give us a perspective. What is 5G? How does it work? Now, if you really look at the history of mobile communication systems, it's even though we probably in India, we saw it kind of around early 2000, but it actually started in 1934 when the police radio used conventional AM mobile communication system. Then first mobile service IMTS, it was a full duplex thing, which started in 1960. They both happened in United States. Then in 1968, AT&T proposed concept of cellular mobile system. In 1983, advanced mobile phone system came, and then along with that, FDMA FM came. 1991, US Digital Cellular is launched, which had TDMA and DQPSK. 1993, next other standards came, IS-95, CDMA, QPSK, BPSK. I'm sure you are aware of quadrature phase shift keying and binary phase shift keying. Basically, this is how you modulate digital signal over a carrier. Now, let's look at how mobile communications evolved in the last 50 years. If you really look at it, the earlier systems were more towards to facilitate a very specific application. The common man could not get the phone. So the common man got this first phone, which we call 1G, which started in 1970 and 80s. The phone itself was called brick because it was too heavy. I mean, literally, even though it was a cell phone, you had to use both hands to lift it and speak. And it was an analog phone. Then came 2G. This was what most of us know as a mobile telephone. Basically, in 1990s, we received these handsets, which was small, but you still couldn't communicate. You had to use an antenna to pull out to communicate. And then it used to allow you. So far, we only heard about voice calling. I mean, we dial a number that the other person receives, we speak on the phone. And we were very happy because before this, you always had to go and sit in a place where there's a landline and only then you'll be able to communicate. That thing changed. And for first time, in addition to talking on the phone, you are able to use text and multimedia messages. And first time the communication moved from analog to digital. Then came 3G. I mean, this was a big explosion. This started in 2000s, and you had high-speed packet access, a multi-input, multi-output, packet switching was used for data. Basically, all your so-called apps, which has become a daily life today, they actually came for the first time along with 3G. You are able to do video calling. You were able to view YouTube on a phone. There are a lot of video contents were shared. You were able to share video content and peer-to-peer communication was possible. All these things happened with 3G, and it almost looked like you had a small computer, not full-fledged. Then came 4G. It started off in 2010. It had LTE and WiMAX, and this was totally, including the backhaul, everything was in IP. So here, it's literally your laptop and computer got compressed into a small package, and it came to your own hand. Then came 5G. Now, what is 5G? It contains several technologies which make it possible. The speed multiplied almost 1,000 times what we are getting it today, and it uses various technologies which I will talk about in the later slides. Before we come to 5G, let us understand what are the feature sets that were available in first gen. Like I mentioned earlier, it started in 1985. It used a radio frequency 400 to 800 megahertz. Its bandwidth was 2.4 to 30 kilobits per second. Cellular coverage area was large. If you remember, it literally used to span almost a 10-kilometer range. It used to run on a core telecom network, which was used earlier for the landline service provisioning. It provided the basic service. It was voice, and it was always from person to person. It used analog FM for speech transmission. The spectrum was shared based on FDMA. The various standards that were used were NTT, NMT, ETAX, and AMS. This is basically across the globe. There was no security. If you had a SM receiver, you could tune into the same frequency and you could hear what the other people were speaking. Bandwidth wastage was there because a single band was dedicated to user whether he used it or not. Then came second generation. This started off in 1992. It used digital modulation formats. TDMA, CDMA were the two standards which were used. CDMA is core division multi-access and TDMA is time division multi-access. Radio frequency was 800 to 900 megahertz. Bandwidth was 9.6 to 14.4 kbps. Cellular coverage area reduced. I mean, it was not very small. I mean, from around 10 kilometer range, we came to around 6-7 kilometer per cell. It ran also on the telecom networks, which are existing for other service provisioning. Now, for first time, voice, in addition to voice, you started getting SMS, media, and it was also person to person. Till this time, multi-in, multi-output was not even thought of. The standards were GSM used TDMA in Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, and some parts of US. IS 136 or NADC used TDMA. This also in some parts of US and South America and Australia. Pacific Cellular used TDMA, which was similar to, I mean, all these standards basically talked about what is the framing format, what are the network specs that you should use, what is the frequency spectrum. Then 2G CDMA used CDMA technology. Then came mobile communication systems 2.5 gen. See, basically there is no 2.5 gen. What happened was when 2G came in, people suddenly started realizing actually the cameras which were mounted on the mobile systems were becoming good. There used to be clarity, and they also wanted to share the video. That is when people thought, why don't we enhance the current standard, which is 2G, to increase the data rate so that the video sharing is possible. This is the first time we started packet switching. Radio frequency was 1800 to 1900 megahertz. Bandwidth increased to a few hundreds of kilobits per second, basically around 170 to 384. Cellular coverage was still remained same because you still use the radios, you upgraded the radios which were used in 2G. It also ran on telecom networks. It provided data service in addition to earlier services. This is when the peer-to-peer data sharing started. The TDMA standards for high-speed circuit switching for 2.5G GSM, GPRS, Edge, and CDMA IS-95. Then came 3G. I mean, this kind of exploded in the, I would say, the handset market. What you used to do with the earlier devices were not much. I mean, even though in 2.5G, we started using systems for office, email, etc. The real effect, I mean, real pocket computer in hand started off with 3G, started off in 2002. This time, I mean, there was a global frequency of 2 megahertz. So basically, the roaming was possible across nations. It used intelligent signal processing. It used IMT 2000 as a standard. Bandwidth went from few kbps to few mbps. Now it was from 0.1 to 42 mbps. Cellular coverage became smaller because actually what happens is as you go higher in the speed, when the frequency increases, the coverage reduces. It ran on migrated network. Basically, that was the time when the telecom providers started thinking, now, do we provide services on a native telecom or do we start IP? Oh, this time, the network was a mixture of both. Even though it is telecom, it was basically IP over telecom and IP over pure IP networks. The services actually exploded. You started getting, first time you were able to do video calling. Then you are able to use data on internet as if it is a computer. And first time the global seamless roaming for data started. That had enhanced security and performance. Then came 4G. 4G started off in 2009. It uses a radio frequency of 2 to 8 gigahertz. Data rate went beyond a few hundred Mbps. It was now almost the peak used to be 450 Mbps. The new standard came in long-term evolution WiMAX. It used packet switching. It ran on a pure packet core network. So all the security and control, everything was possible now. The additional services that came in was online gaming and HDTV. Now came 5th generation. It started off in 2020. It is still evolving because what happens is a lot of things we are trying to explore using 5G. That means every services that you are expecting requires a lot of new technology to be invented and implemented. That is why it is still, I wouldn't say that it has reached its stage where you can say, yeah, there's a maturity. I expect probably by 24, 25, the peak performance of 5th generation can be seen. The data rate target is 1 Gbps. It uses newer technologies like millimeter waves, smart cell, massive MIMO, beamforming, edge computing. I will be discussing this in the coming slides. Before we continue, why 5G? I mean, what is not there in 4G? So what triggered the 5G? See, basically it is, if you really go back and look at how computers evolved, the story is similar here. You provide a bandwidth. The bandwidth is like providing a highway. I mean, if you notice, there are two cities interconnected by a smaller road. The vehicles that ply, they are also small. And once the traffic congestion happens, then the government decides to expand the road. And once the road expands, literally the vehicles expand. And when the vehicle expands, the business scenario expands totally. So this is exactly what happened in 5G, fast traffic growth, because 4G and 3G made people realize that literally you can communicate a lot over internet wirelessly. So people started consuming more GB per month. Newer applications were launched. So if you really look at it like video conference, literally video conferencing used to be seen. I still remember even as early as 2015 or 2014, you have to go to a room and then your sys administrator will set up a camera and then a lot of stuff he will do on the internet for bandwidth, etc. Finally, he will say, yes, sir, the video conference. Today, you pick up a phone, you call 4 of your friends, and you're on. This technology evolution actually drives more requirement for bandwidth. Video streaming, gaming, social networks, and we don't know. Maybe you see, before WhatsApp came in, I mean, the idea of video sharing was not that much mature, but then along with that, video call started, video conferencing started. We don't know. Maybe there's another killer app which is waiting to come out. Maybe something to do with an e-commerce, virtual reality. I mean, the application is endless. So what happened is this drove whatever data that we were putting on the wireless became less. So, and it's just, if you really look at it, it is growing day by day. I mean, every year it is increasing by 50%. And people expect by the time we reach 2035, the data traffic will be 1,000 times what we are using now. When the traffic becomes more, it requires newer technology. And if you really look at it, in 2015, people were using 0.7 GB per person per month. And in 2020, it is 6.5 GB. If you really look at it, in 5 years, it has multiplied by almost 10 times. The technology vision. 5G target performance. The expected data rate from 5G is 10 Gbps peak and 1 Gbps cell edge. Spectral efficiency, 10 bits per second per hertz. Connection density, 1 million devices per kilometer square. Mobility latency, 300 to 500 kilometers per hour is the speed and 5 millisecond end to end. 1 millisecond over there. Basically, what happened today, I mean, one of the main things that drove 5G is IoT. See, today, we have a lot of IoT systems, but 4G doesn't specify a way to provide an uplink. So we sometimes use LoRa, sometimes use narrowband LTE, but there is no real solution to add it. Second problem is the number of devices. Actually, it has just started. When IoT will reach its peak, you will have million devices in a 5 square kilometer area. Now, today, we don't have any technology which tells you how to manage this, because they don't really send a high bandwidth traffic, but the simple communication to each of them, if you really see, right, 1 million devices will require 1 million communication lines. That is addressed in 5G. So if this is the IMT vision of 5G, I mean, we already talked about what is the data rate, mobility. See, the speed comes in because, see, as we use systems, we have to provide coverage no matter where you are sitting. So suppose you are sitting in a bullet train, then the speed can actually go up to 500 kilometers per hour. Energy efficient should be high, otherwise the whole idea will fail because the service will be so costly. Then number of devices. The number of devices is mainly driven by the newer evolution in the IoT. Then reliability is needed because we are talking about driverless cars. And even if you lose connectivity for a microsecond, you can expect accidents. Low latency. When you're talking about viewing video, be it online or media sharing, or let's talk about a surgery happening in a hospital. There, the latency, if it happens and you do certain thing which is not monitored by the surgeon who is on the other end, the whole thing will be catastrophic. Spectral efficiency, yes, there is spectrum available, but unless and until you achieve spectral efficiency, the whole idea is useless. Then comes, actually, this is the main driver, data rate. So these are the technology vision with which 5G has started. Now, what all services you are expecting? You are basically what you are expecting is whatever your laptop or a computer can do, you should be able to do it on a phone, and everything at a quicker rate, literally without having need to load a lot of data or memory in your handset. You want to do everything in cloud. You want to have telepresence. You want to have a immersive experience. This is where AR, VR comes into picture. And you want to have massive connectivity. I mean, I talked about hands literally, and thanks to whatever corona effect which we had, now literally every house we are having a minimum of 4 cell phones, one for each of the person, let's say parents and the 2 kids, and literally 4 laptops, because they also have to do their school. So it literally doubled. Earlier, probably the parents must have had a 2 cell phone. From 2, the number of devices went straight away to 8. This is how the situation, technology, vision of a people, exploiting available resources are driving 5G. So what are the services? Cloud service should be there, high speed internet should be there, wireless HD CCTV. This is needed. I mean, you know that more and more in the country, in the whole world, people are moving into a nuclear family. So you would like to monitor your assets, children from a distant location. So you need a HD CCTV. You want to do personal broadcast because a lot of new performing artists came up today. And in fact, there are people who are shooting a whole movie sitting in their own home. They would like to broadcast. Location-based technology, you walk into an area, you want to know where war shopping things are available, you want to know about the history of the area, and all these things come. This all will drive wireless backhaul. It has to be more and more faster, and a lot of data should be able to be pumped in. Let's look at 5G services which have been classified. First one is ultra reliable, low latency communication. This is where your vehicle to vehicle communication will come in, where you use a cloud infrastructure and smart home, UAV based delivery. I mean, we have seen a few videos and few ads, but actually Amazon has already tried and they have delivered, they are delivering, in fact, in some of the places in US using a unmanned aerial vehicle. IoV is Internet of Vehicles. Now, what this needs is the same services which are very low latency. So they're expecting less than 20 milliseconds delay in a train to ground communication for a high speed railway. And the high speed rail will be moving at 350 kilometers per hour. Second one, enhanced mobile broadband. I mean, this is a basic backhaul that we used to have earlier that need to provide more and faster and more reliable. So what are the services we are looking at? HD video, smart grid, online surgeries, intelligent factories, smart city, smart home. These are the services which are looking from EMBB. Then we have MMTC, which is massive machine type communications. This is where augmented reality, virtual reality will come in, online medical services, education. Literally, education has already reached total online. I mean, even people are planning to do labs over online. This and all will require a very low latency. Otherwise, you press a button and you expect something to happen. If there is a reliability or a latency issue, the result will be totally unexpected. Let's look at a network architecture. Basically, your user equipment will connect to a eNode B, which is basically your today the 4G base station. This is what you see whenever you look upon a building. You see a small tower with a few antennas. This gNode B is a new one. This is basically for the 5G, and then you connect to access and mobility management function. Basically, this will, I mean, if you are aware of how landline works, basically when you get a landline connection, there is something called a location register where the data about it is stored. Same thing is applicable to mobile. So when a user equipment connect to a 5G network, okay, who are you? What is the service you are expecting? What is the speed you are expecting? All this data will be authenticated by this. Everything is available over next generation RAN. Now, what are the cell specifications? See, one of the things which you must have heard, there has been a few spooking which is there in the internet. You know what? 5G came, that radiation resulted in this effect, that effect. You need to understand what are the specs of this 5G. So for 5G, you have various different types of cells. The smallest one is femtocell, which is basically covering homes and businesses, wherein maximum number of users are expected in home is 4 to 8, and business is 16 to 32. The output power of this transceiver antennas is 10 to 100 milliwatts, and when it is deployed outdoor, it is 200 to 1000 milliwatts. Coverage is very less, tens of meters. We will discuss this as I go further. Then you have a next cell, which is called picocell, which is used in public areas like shopping mall, airport, train station, and skyscrapers. The number of users increases from 64 to 128. Again, if you really look at the power, 100 to 250 milliwatts, and outdoors it is 1000 to 5000 milliwatts. This is basically 1 to 2 watts. It's tens of meters. Now you can actually, I mean, you're all, most of you must be electronics and computer science graduates. You can understand what can a milliwatt and a watt output power of an antenna do. So this is definitely very safe. The one thing which is different from 5G over other things is number of transmitters which will be present, because the range has significantly reduced. Earlier, we used to, when we talked about 3G, 2.5G, I talked about in terms of kilometers. Now we came down to tens of meters or hundreds of meters. This is a big difference. So what this would mean is there will be a transmitter for a few meters. Otherwise, you won't be able to receive signal. Why? I will again explain it in a subsequent slide. Then you move on. We have a microcell, which is for urban areas to fill coverage gaps. It can cover 128 to 256 users. It's outdoor and it is 5 to 10 watts. The range is few hundred meters. Then comes metro cell. This is for urban areas to provide additional capacity. Maximum number of users is more than 250. This will be 10 to 20 watts. And this can cover hundreds of meters. Just for comparison, the Wi-Fi which you have at home, which can actually handle 50 users, its output is 20 to 100 milliwatts indoor and 200 to 1000 milliwatts outdoor. And this also can cover a few tens of meters. If you really look at it, the transmitter antenna that 5G would be using is similar to Wi-Fi, which you have been using for like 4 or 5 years now. Now comes, okay, what is this? I mean, where do we stand and what all this? People talk about megahertz, gigahertz. I mean, what is all this thing? This is all basically, if you really look at it, I mean, it all starts with the tuning fork experiment, which you must have done in your class, which starts with a few hertz. And then as the frequency increases, I mean, if you really look at it, this is a nice slide, which will explain you. Initially, when you're talking about a megahertz as the frequency, the wavelength would be in the size of a football. As you increase, I mean, from megahertz, when you increase to 10 megahertz or 100 megahertz, you come to a man's height. Then when you cross gigahertz, you become a baseball. When you come to almost 1000 gigahertz, you are into paperclip. And then when you come to terahertz, you come to cells. Then you go to size of a bacteria, virus, water molecule, atom, subatomic part. That will be your wavelength, and the frequency goes from megahertz to gigahertz actually. So what are the various frequency bands that are available? We should look at a radio spectrum, because this is our area of interest now, but it's a nice slide, as I thought we should know what is happening in a spectrum, because sometimes we don't appreciate actually what we call electronics and optics. They converge in the electromagnetic spectrum, and this is a nice way of knowing it. Let's look at a radio spectrum. And radio spectrum is basically divided into broadcast and wireless and microwave. In the broadcast and wireless, we have AM radio, We have audible sounds or sound waves. We have ultrasound. We have FM radio. We have a TV broadcast. Then mobile phones come into this gap. Then we have a wireless Wi-Fi, which we have at home. Microwave oven, which uses same frequency. Radar. Basically, what you need to look at is the amplitude which is used. That is why I talked about the power when I discussed earlier, because people will think, okay, you are using a same wave in a microwave oven, and you are telling me my cell phone receives the same one. No, I will have a lot of effect. And there were a lot of talk about brain being fried, etc. All these things are incorrect because the amplitude of the frequency of a microwave which you use in an oven or in a radar is totally different from the amplitude of the micro use in a cell phone communication. Then comes the terahertz. This is where electronics meets the optics. So as you cross 1000 terahertz, you enter into light. So this crossing range terahertz, you have bioimaging and screening, and then you get a move into total optics, infrared, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma. And the various applications are fiber telecom uses low-level visible wavelength. Then you have a dental curing, which uses the UV. Then you have visible light, which is in 425 to 750 terahertz. The cell phone, the TV remotes use 850 nanometer. Night vision also uses this spectrum. Suntan is caused by the ultraviolet rays. So that also is in this spectrum. Then we come to X-ray, medical X-ray, baggage screening, crystallography. Then you have gamma rays. The crossover will use it for PET imaging, wherein you put a radioactive material in a person, you can actually get an imaging of each of the organs. Then you have cosmic ray. This is just for information. Now, how does all these things happen, and who will decide why we should use? Who will tell us? Okay, for 3G you use this bandwidth. We have ITU, which is International Telecommunication Union. They have a regulation committee, and that have a study group. And the study group of terrestrial services will hold a world radio conference every 4 years, and they decide internationally, globally, what spectrum we should use for what applications and what should be the standards you need to follow. It is not like I today decide, yeah, I need this application, and then I go ahead and use a spectrum. That is why, if you notice, of course, for a wrong set of reasons, all this 3G scam, wherein earlier these frequencies were used for defense applications. Then we created an extensive network for defense and asked them to migrate to that network and release the spectrum. That happened because in 3G, we decided all over the world, people should move to 2 megahertz so that the roaming across the globe would be possible. Similarly, for 5G, there were 2 meetings done in WRC. First one was in 15, another was in 19, where they agreed to provide these frequencies for implementing 5G. Now let's look at what are the current services which are running in this 3G spectrum, 5G spectrum, I'm sorry. Incumbent services are actually mobile satellite radio navigation, broadcasting satellite, radio astronomy, Earth exploration satellite, space research, mobile gigabit wireless systems, aeronautical mobile radio determination. Now what happens is, that is why when you really come to the next slide, if you really look at it, the agreed frequency for 5G is not continuous. You see, even though in the 20 to 30 gigahertz frequency range, you are allowed only 24.25 to 27.5. In the 30 to 40 gigahertz, you are allowed only 31.8 and 33.4. This gap is because other incumbent services are already using this, and it is not possible. That is the reason why I took the example of a Indian defense where we migrated. That was within our hands. There are certain communications which you can do a migration, wherein both parties sit down and agree, and it is practically possible to migrate. It is not always possible to migrate all frequencies. That is the reason for from the frequency spectrum, only few frequencies are allocated for 5G. Now, who all are using? If you really look at it in US, there's actually one difference in the way the frequency bands are being used. Less than 1 gigahertz is one band, and above 1 gigahertz is another band. So basically 600 megahertz to 2.5 gigahertz is what is being used for a lower band, and then they are using 3.45 to 3.7 in a second band, then 5.9 to 7.1 gigahertz in a third band, and they are exploring 24.5 to 24.25 to 24.45 gigahertz. Similarly, other countries are doing different frequencies. I will not go into details here. Now, these are the two important frequency bands for us, which are being used today in 5G. One is radio frequency 410 megahertz to 7.2125. Actually, they started off with a sub 6 gigahertz, and they realized that they can go up to 7.125. Then the second band is 24.25 gigahertz to 52 gigahertz. The one difference between the two would be this is much faster than this. Okay, and then millimeter wave. Millimeter wave is the one which will give you maximum bandwidth. That starts from 30 gigahertz onwards. Now, 5G deployment. When we really look at it, okay, 5G came in. Now, how do you implement? First thing which people always do is use the existing network infrastructure, provide a newer service. This is basically a 4G network which is available. 4G, long-term evolution, enhanced packet core, and this is the existing infrastructure. So you just put a 5G radio, provide a 5G services. I mean, already I think in iPhone and some of the service providers, you're getting 5G enabled phone. So you take it, it works with 4G, and when a 5G antenna is installed, it will work with 5G. This will move to the second one, which is called standalone. Then you will have a 5G core, newer radio, and standalone. Basically, the cell phones would, like today, a 4G phone, if you really take, and then if you go outside a city, you realize that it changes. And if you really look at the display symbol on the top, it tells you it went from 4G, it went to 3G, probably it even goes to 2.5G, which is that E symbol which you used to get earlier, and the bandwidth comes down. Basically, the all new phones or user equipment will be compatible with the older versions of the telecommunication. Now, what are key technologies that are driving? We talked about spectrum. So basically, we got additional spectrum for 5G, much wider spectrum. Massive MIMO beamforming. Basically, this is a way the transmitter communicates to your handset. Network splicing. This is basically because, like I mentioned earlier, in 4G, there is no way you can add a IoT traffic to the main network, even though IoT is also wireless. So that is solved by doing network splicing in 5G. Multi-connectivity. This is, I mean, any device you take, you should be able to connect. Edge computing. Edge computing is basically to reduce the load on the cell phone. Otherwise, the user equipment needs a high processor. That means it will be bulky and it will be hot. It will consume more power. Now let's look at what are the features and benefits of 5G. It uses sub 6 gigahertz spectrum and millimeter wave spectrum. The benefit is you will be able to get 10 to 100% more capacity. It is user equipment agnostic and massive multi-input, multi-output and beamforming. This means higher capacity and coverage, lean carrier design. This will give you low power consumption and less interference. It will have flexible frame structure that will give you low latency and high efficiency. It has got a scalable OFDM frame based on air interface. I mean, I'll discuss about OFDM, so you'll know in detail. This will address diverse spectrum and services. Advanced channel coding. This will give you large data block with low complexity. Aggregation of LTE plus 5G carriers. This will give high data rate with smooth migration. Integrated access and backhaul will give you greater coverage at millimeter wave with lower cost. Flexible connectivity, mobile and sessions will give you optimized end-to-end for any services. Beamform control and access channel will give you greater coverage. I think we already covered this. Higher spectrum usage will give you enhanced efficiency. Now we came to know what is 5G, why 5G. Now how 5G? How 5G will handle 1,000 times data. This 1,000 times came in the picture because if you really look at it, when I talked about 4G, what speed you are getting? You are getting few Mbps of data. What speed you are expecting in 5G? You get expecting few gigabits of data. So that is 1,000 times. Now question is, where will I get this 1,000 times? Increasing data traffic, basically bits per second per kilometer square. You should be able to handle 100 times more traffic per square kilometer. Formula for data and traffic in cellular network is capacity, that is bits per second per kilometer square, is equal to cell density into spectral efficiency into available spectrum. Ways to achieve 1,000 times increase. Basically, 5G was not conceived in a single day. This was the vision which started off. Nokia proposed we increase cell density by 10x, higher spectral density efficiency by 10x, and more spectrum by 10x. You'll be able to get this. Then South Korea Telecom proposed we increase cell density by 56x, spectral efficiency by 6x, more spectrum by 3x will receive. Now, latest vision is like this. So how 5G will handle 1,000 times more data? We increase higher cell density. This will mean more access points per kilometer square by 10. Higher spectral efficiency, direct signal towards many users. If you notice, the numbers changed here because, see, when you write in a piece of paper, when you go and implement, the things change. So there are certain aspects which are difficult to increase beyond a value based on the current technology available. There are certain things which you can do. So here it doubled spectral because people were able to understand that by using multi-in, multi-output many antennas, you will be able to achieve this 20x higher spectral efficiency. Frequency spectrum was one thing where we were able to get, and that is 5x. So finally, with all these things, we are able to achieve our 1,000 times more data. Now, each of the technologies which we talk about actually are working on providing this. Please note, this is a hypothetical number, though there was a trial in Spain where they were able to achieve 888 megabits per second as a speed. So it is still work in progress, but it is doable. Now let's talk about how high cell density will be achieved. Cellular networks, coverage area has to be divided into cells, one access point per cell, serves user in the cell, reduce the cell so that more devices can be handled. Denser deployment of access point, shorter distance, reduced power. When you go in this direction, the problem will be interference, because when you do higher capacity of bits per cell, second per cell, then you have interference. Now, this is solved using small cells. It contains low powered radio access nodes. They provide capacity, throughput, and coverage. So this is how a small cell will look like. There will be an antenna. It will have a smaller range, and this will handle the devices. So this actually means more such. Literally, as per current estimation, every electricity pole will have a 5G antenna. So that is how you are able to get an antenna within 100 few meters, basically. Around 60 to 80 meters, you will have one electric pole that will be using. And in a way, if you really look at it, multiple things drive it. The smart city drive has already started building infrastructure for hosting a lot of equipment in a street electric pole. You will exploit the same infrastructure to provide a small cell antenna. The range will be few meters to maximum of a 2 kilometer. It should be low cost. Basically, the deployment and maintenance should be cheaper. That is the thing which will drive this. Now, millimeter waves, the problem with millimeter wave is it gets absorbed and reflected by objects like trees and cloud. So this will prevent from implementing, because the moment one object is reached, this will totally be unusable. Okay. Let's look at a small video where we'll understand. When you have a millimeter wave, it has got some advantage, like it will provide higher bandwidth, but there's disadvantage. If you notice here, is able to communicate, but the moment he moves behind a tree, the communication signal is lost. Now this will not help for anybody, because the moment you lose a line of sight, if you're losing the signal, nobody would like to have that service. Now, what is the solution to this? So they came up with the small cell station, which are, this is a huge base station, and then they will put a small cell station every few meters. So this will cover a smaller area, and the number of cell stations and the distance between them depends on the location, on the population. Usually it will be in like few meters. I mean, distance between two small cells can be from 10 to 100 meters. So now if you notice, even though you've got a line of sight here, you will be able to get the signal through this. This means you will have small cells with this small repeater stations everywhere, near your house, in a shopping mall, everywhere. Since, like I talked about earlier, the power of this is small, so it is not a health concern. Now, increase spectral efficiency. This basically, spectral efficiency from information theory, it says it's very expensive. If you want to double spectral efficiency, the power that you need is 70 times. So this is not, I mean, by increasing spectrum beyond a level is not a solution. So what we do is we provide many simultaneous transmissions directed towards the users using MIMO technology. Now, what is massive MIMO? Today, a cell tower has 10 antennas per site. Now we will increase it to 100 antennas per site. So each of these sites will have 100 antennas. Basically, each user will be served by a single antenna, basically more than one, because we talk about the non-orthogonal multiplexing. There we'll understand how we can do that. But you can assume that earlier, what used to serve only a few users using one antenna, now it has got 100 antennas. So even if you serve one user per antenna, the multiplication factor is already 100. If you really look at it, we have increased frequency spectrum. I talked about how ITU allows you to, I mean, it has allowed the international spectrum release for 5G, and that has given you additional spectrum. Now, there are unused spectrum which is available, some of which is already being used. Many gigahertz of unused spectrum at millimeter wave frequencies is available between 30 to 300 gigahertz. Now, today, entire wireless communication systems occupy the narrow band of 3 kilohertz to 6 gigahertz. Now, this space is very crowded, and remaining spectrum is not used. That was the motivation to request ITU to allot additional spectrum. Now they have proposed, okay, you start with that 24 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz, and they will look at how to provide additional spectrum later. By allocating additional spectrum, enough bandwidth is now available for offering a wide array of new services. Beamforming. In 5G, the density of user equipment is very high. So there will be interference between adjacent UEs. UE is user equipment. Now, when you are here, whatever signal you are getting, if you really look at it, this is your beam, this is his beam, and this is third person. All these things are interfering. What this would mean that your bandwidth, availability, and clarity, latency, everything will get affected. Now, beamforming is a technology wherein it is, if you really look at a conventional way, if I were to explain to you, it is like using instead of using a torch, now you're using a laser beam. So each antenna would provide a particular frequency and beam it only to that user based on a selection algorithm written inside the base station. So then the communication will happen on only this band. So even though they are standing adjacent to each other, the overlapping will not be there. And this means less interference, less energy consumption. This will how it would compare the standard antenna and with beamforming. Beamforming has beams covering multiple areas. Basically, it is not just, I mean, there it looked like as if it's only in one direction. Azimuth is horizontal and elevation is vertical. So basically, the beams are not just horizontal, they are also vertical. So basically, if you're looking at a multi-storied building, each floor may have multiple beams floating in one particular elevation and on multiple azimuth. So similarly on a road. So basically you are able to cover large area without interference. Then comes the non-orthogonal multiple access. In order to optimize spectrum usage, we use non-orthogonal multiple access. Now what is non-orthogonal multiple access? I will explain you. It allows multiple users to multiple data to be sent on the same frequency band in same time. If you really look at orthogonal multiple access, which is used in 4G, in a single frequency band, only one user is connected. So you split frequency into multiple slots and depending on the user, provide that bandwidth to particular user. When you come to non-orthogonal, you provide, you use single frequency band in the same time to provide services to multiple users. This will allow to send multiple data on the same frequency band and same time. Now, how does it work? Basically, the base station selects. It is not a user who selects, base selects who is the near user, who is the far user. I mean, based on the communication which is available. What it does is it overlaps near user signal over far user. So they both will be served at the same time and same frequency. Now transmit power is split between them, higher power to far user, low power share to near user. Now the question comes, okay, so I receive both signal. How do I identify which one I should pick up? So interference will happen. So it is easier. Let us start for explaining from a far user. Far user decodes his signal normally because the near user signal, which is overlapped on the same NOMA signal, has become weak by the time it reaches far user. You just eliminate the noise, you get your signal. For the near user, he's got a large interference from far user because the power of the far user signal is very high. So what near user equipment does is it discovers the far user signal first, subtracts this interference from the composite signal, and that is how it will get the near user signal. How it happens is you received a non-orthogonal multi-access signal, you decode far user signal, then you extract far user data, subtract this from original signal, you get the near user signal decoding and you will get the near user data. Note that in far user, we don't have to cancel anything because the near user data itself is too weak. And that's the reason why it need not be decoded. So basically here we use a recursive algorithm so that n devices can start subtracting each signal one at a time, finally till you get your data. I think I'm running a little late. Network slicing. See, this is one thing which is very important because earlier, till 4G, there is no network slicing. That is why you're not able to provide multiple services over a same mobile communication band that is available to you. Here, we have to provide end-to-end QoS with optimal resource sharing. Now, three types of slice are standardized by 3GPP, mobile broadband, we have already discussed, low latency and massive IoT. See, this is one thing which is not there today. Even low latency is not available in 4G. So you only have mobile broadband, which is a high bandwidth availability. Now, each network, so basically each network slice is basically, just take it in this way. You have two user equipment, you go to a tower, you go to some data infrastructure network, and then you come out. Assume that this road, equivalent to this is, remember the cycle lanes and bus lanes which were built in the ring roads, wherein there's a dedicated path allocated for a cycle on the same road and the dedicated path created for bus on the same road. Now, only difference here is there won't be physical allocation. That allocation will be logical. That means today what is allocated for a cycle can be used for a bus later. I mean, I've seen in US, which is being implemented, when you're going towards the city, the number of lanes that go towards city will be more. So they do it by doing a mobile road partitioner, which they will move it to side. And when you're returning from city, the reverse is true. The traffic flow out of the city will have more lanes than traffic towards city will have lesser. This application is similar to that. Basically, the IoT will require a low latency, but high device aggregation, and the surgeries will require low latency, high bandwidth. Then mobile bandwidth will not bother about low latency as long as there is no blurring or slippery in the video. So the different requirements are addressed, and how it is addressed, let us look at it. See, these are the various components that you need to play around. You need to understand peak data rate, latency in radio access network, connection density, cell edge data rate, cell throughput. So this has to take care of diversive services like smart home, smart city, mission critical application, new business models, which is business over consumer, third party services, communication service provider services. This will explain what is network slicing. You have a device, then you have an automotive slice. How do you identify? It's got to, if those who are aware of Ethernet frame will know that the tagging, basically, this is like a simple VLAN tagging that you have used, wherein you say, okay, for this VLAN, you provide this path. Similarly, you have a slight identifier and a slight differentiator, which will tell you, okay, the moment a user equipment get connected to a network will decide, okay, I need to provide this license to this. I think I overshot by 5 minutes, so I will try to push it a little bit faster. Let's talk about mobile edge computing. See, the one the drawback in devices that we have today, that is in 4G, that is, see, the cell phone has to do all. If you really look at it, if I go to a shop and he says, okay, sir, I don't accept your Google Pay, then I want a phone pay or some other thing. You have to start installing that, making that ready, and then only will be used. Now imagine this situation in 5G when you have so many applications available. You will waste a lot of time just to get to speed. That is when mobile edge computing comes into picture. It is similar to, for those who are aware of cloud computing, it is similar to that. The cloud comes to mobile edge. Most of the process, let's look at this video. In a normal cloud network, the cloud services could be far away from users physically. And this means that the data and the communication has to come through, and because of distance or latency, which will have a delay in the access of the services. So when you want to download any applications and data into user devices, that will be too much burden to user device, because then it will have to have a lot of processing power and memory. Imagine providing a mobile edge computing in between. So you have a cloud, you have a lot of apps and data sitting there. You bring them to mobile edge, which is very closer. I mean, you can assume as if like it is sitting in your local tower. Now your latency is reduced. Your for access to data time is reduced. So basically, you don't see that rotating thing on your screen. Another thing is application splitting. I mean, you don't have to keep the entire application on your cell phone. So some tasks will be performed on the device, some on the cloud. This means the capacity required on your handset is very low. So this is how mobile edge computing would work. What is the current status? South Korea has already launched 5G. 224 operators have rolled out in 88 countries. 9 companies sell 5G radio and systems. Aliostar, Cisco, Datang Telecom, FiberHome, Ericsson, Huawei, Nokia, Qualcomm, Samsung, and ZTE. In India, Reliance Jio is planning to start 5G services by June 2021. Before I leave, I thought I will just tell you, okay, this is all what had happened. What about what next? Next is 6G. They are expecting to come out by first deployment by 2030. Chips have already launched with a speed of 11 gigabits per second. 10 times more devices, 100 times more reliable. Well, look at the small video wherein, like, imagine, I mean, this is a virtual reality. You wear a glass, you have a talking companion as you walk on the road, you sleep in your car is going in a highway, it goes outside. Today, one of the things which you notice is once you go outside the city, these things don't work. But for a car which is auto driven, it has to work always. A car has to interact with all other cars, know what speed they are going in. I mean, today, if you really look at it, when you drive a car, 1 second, I would like to repeat this. When you're driving a car today, so you are seeing the traffic of other people, where you get the traffic of other cars to know the congestion. Now tomorrow you need to know which car is coming at what speed in which direction, so that you know where you will meet and when you need to slow down, when you need to talk. That needs low latency, high availability system. So that is what you will get in 6G. Now these are the references that I have taken. And finally, thank you. Over to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm online. Thank you, sir, for this. Yes, sir.
Small.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
I need some small discussion. Just 2 minutes, sir. Okay.
Yes, sir. You carry on.
Vasant sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm just looking at this high-speed communication. All this, the future towards the systems. So, for example, now we are going for multi-core, and system will have 32 cores, 64 cores like this.
Yes.
And between core to another core, and between core and the memory, lot of communication will be happening, say every cycle, right? A lot of communication demand is there. There is a data demand, instruction demand, application demand. So all these things are there. Now, how do we look at to solve this problem of, say, providing or making the data available to each of the core at the time when it is required? I'm just getting into the core and then a processor system. And
you are actually talking about how does the user equipment evolve?
Not user equipment. I'm particularly looking at only the processor, the multi-core processor, the communication. So
the processor, you're talking about the processor sitting in user equipment. You're talking about the processor sitting in the network equipment.
No, I'm sitting in the user equipment. Processor in the user equipment.
Yeah, basically what
and the communication between the processor cores, multiple cores, and then the core and the memory. All this, how the future going to be like? Because as we increase the number of cores, naturally the demand for the data between the cores or the data demand between the core and the memory, these are increasing. Like all this time, it was only the wired, right? There is a motherboard, and there is a definitely the board will say help for the communication between the processor and the memory. But between the core of the same processor, so how does this multiple cores could say maybe like how we can improve these communications, because there is a lot of demand.
No, actually, the main aim, if you really look at 5G or even 6G, is basically to reduce the processing and communication that is happening user equipment. They are actually, I mean, the more exploration will happen in terms of virtualization, and wherein we are planning to move the services from the user equipment to the edge computing. Basically, if you really look at, I mean, it's already there. Actually, in Smart City, one of the application is to move processing and data from the user equipment to the first access, that is the edge. Basically, whatever is your street pole now has become a smart pole. There you put a computing equipment which will do. So basically, there was a slide where I talked about how we are talking about even splitting an app. I mean, a particular application. I mean, if you really look at olden times, I can use that as a comparison. Is if you want to manage an equipment, you actually have to download a Java code, which will bring a browser, which used to sit in your user equipment, that used to communicate. Future is like later on, as we moved forward, you realize that Java is to just provide a Java running environment. It's a few files. It will just launch the browser. Rest all used to sit in the next equipment. We apply, I mean, the vision of 5G is to move computation as much away from the user equipment and move it to the edge computing device, which will be a very powerful system, which will be sitting there having a multi-core and kind of a blade server. I hope I have answered your question.
I think earlier we also had this NOC, network on chip.
Yes, yes.
So from the perspective of the network on chip, my doubt was or my discussion was with respect to the NOC, network on chip. Say network on chip, so definitely it was wired. Now, are we moving any step ahead of this NOC, network on chip?
Now, the expectation of the user equipment is basically the faster communication chip. Basically, the chip should have a higher capability to handle faster transmission, but there is no expectation from the user equipment chip to have a additional processing power or more memory. I mean, that is not a requirement. In fact, expectation is 5G handsets will be lighter than the 4G. The idea is to move all communications and capability and processing away from the chip so that you just enjoy the applications. It is similar to tab when it first came in. I mean, if you really compare a tab with a laptop, a tab doesn't have much processing power, but everything it uses from a edge device if you have.
Okay. Right, sir. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Now I request Professor Rimpa ma'am to take care of question and answer session. Participants, you can post your queries in Q&A. Rimpa ma'am, over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Hello, sir. I'm Rimpa here, who is managing queries for this session. I have few queries listed down from the participant side during the session. Here are some queries. The first query is, will 5G is going to replace Wi-Fi in coming days? The first query is, will 5G is going to replace 5G?
Yes, answer is yes. Basically, Wi-Fi will also become a, you can say it's an arm. It will be an arm of 5G. There is no separate services. When I talked about multiple systems to be integrated, basically, when we look at the 5G, 5G will integrate all wireless communication into one single packet of services. It will not,
Okay.
5G will not replace, Wi-Fi will connect to a 5G. It will be
Okay.
part of 5G.
Yes, yes. The second query is, what impact 5G will have on backhaul network?
5G is already started impacting a backhaul network. Your basically all your transmission backhaul network will be thrown out. When 3G moved in, we were able to provide services using existing transmission backhaul. I mean, if you really want to understand, the backhaul is divided into two. The traditional backhaul is called transmission or transport, wherein you used to do circuit switching. That what this means is you connect, you create a end-to-end dedicated bandwidth and you provide services using this. And this dedicated bandwidth would be somewhat like a pipe. Like if you remember, I talked about an example of a bike lane and a bus lane and a traffic towards city and an out of city as an example. What this means is in a transmission network, you provide a bandwidth which is like a pipe. You create a pipe, you can only use it. Full pipe is available, you can only use that pipe and the data has to go through that. That system or that architecture cannot be used with 5G. So the entire transmission backhaul will go away. You will have a revolution of IP. It's already started actually. Most of the people migrated to IP and it will have pure IP based on network virtualization and bandwidth on demand. All these services will be highly used.
Okay. Thank you. Next, what is the status of 5G deployment in India and when it is full-fledged operation in India?
Actually, I was there with Mr. Ambani when he launched his services on November 29, 2002. And knowing him, if he says June, I'm not sure you will get it by June, but I'm 100% sure on 29th November 2021, you will have Jio launching 5G. Typically, initially, it may be in few metros. Now, today's status is what you asked. Today's status is mostly trials. We have a few networking gear and there are a few companies. Actually, some of my colleagues are working on implementing the software infrastructure for 5G. Some are working on hardware, some are working on radio, some are working on providing this network infrastructure. But to tell today, yes, you give full power, full money, you cannot put 5G in India. It needs time. My expectation is by a year, you will have a few cell phones which will be able to use 5G service and bandwidth in metros. I mean, my expectation is probably Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai may have 5G network by worst case by November.
Okay. Next question is, can you suggest some research directions in 5G technology? Any particular problem we can focus on?
Actually, 5G is full of problems. I talked about, see, let's look at providing bandwidth. Today, the maximum bits per hertz transmission, it is, I think 0.5 bits per cycle, per second. So if you are able to pick this, I mean, for those who are studying electronics, can you increase it to 1 bits per second, bits per cycle? That itself is a huge improvement. It will double the bandwidth. Then application. See, all these things is nice to look at in a PPT. If you are a Java or a software engineer, see look at the new software engineering, right? Now, when you say an app, basically we all today, as we know of a software, it's a package. There is nothing like a half app sitting here, half app sitting in mobile computing. Just imagine you buy a small processor and then you put it in and then use your handset. Can you split the WhatsApp which you talk about? Can you split that WhatsApp? Half sits in your cell phone, half sits in mobile computing. That's in your architecture. So software architecture, the problems are huge. If you're a power electronics engineer, problems are huge. If you are a electronics engineer, see, imagine this non-orthogonal multiple access. It's a huge area which has got huge problems by itself. See how much. I said I showed an example where you could multiply 2 signals on a same frequency in the same time. What if it is 100? So how do you separate? I mean, there are various questions which we don't have answers today.
Okay. The next is application installation can also be moved to cloud in 5G cloud, or cloud gives service for mobile.
I think there is a confusion. Application installation is already in cloud. 5G is moving it to edge computing. Now, there is a difference between edge computing and cloud. See, cloud is basically, I take an access device, like for example, I take a CCTV camera, I just put it. It's a small camera. It doesn't have huge memory. It can store the recording for like 30 minutes maximum. So then I connect it to internet. The storing happens in cloud. The camera does nothing. It just records, it captures the image, sends it to cloud. The recording, application, everything is sitting in cloud. That is already there today. What 5G is telling is your cell phone. I mean, you take a cell phone, you record. The recording will happen in edge computing. Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here, the cloud in 5G is edge computer. So we are planning to move everything in edge computer. What you have application on a mobile phone in 5G will have just a small icon which is called application. That when you click that, similar to the JRE example I took earlier, what actually happens is this will trigger the nearest edge computer that will handle the application. So it is, answer is yes, not to cloud, to edge computer.
Okay, sir. Next is, can you brief on impact of horizontal slicing on 5G and how it differs from vertical slicing?
Horizontal slicing and vertical slicing are not there in network. Actually, it is just network slicing. I think you are a little bit confused. Horizontal slicing and vertical slicing is actually for beam formation. So beam formation has horizontal and vertical slicing because the network users will sit in different floors in a tower, and also they walk on the road. So that is why this is there. The network slicing is basically virtual splitting of network infrastructure to provide different services, different quality of service. What I mean is, like for example, a sensor sitting, a parking sensor sitting in a parking lot just updates one data every second. It just says, I'm occupied, I'm free. That's it. This data is basically, I think, 3 bits, which is sent as a nibble, which is 4 bits. So it is going to send 4 bits of data every second. That's all. It does nothing more than that. Now, if I allocate it to a normal network, let us say it's a normal network pipe, what happens is this message will reach after a few seconds to a user, which is useless to him, because when you are just about to turn your car to park, a car would have parked just before you. So that is where network splicing will come into picture. Network slicing, you can say, It is one, and you can say horizontal slicing. There is no vertical slicing. What happens here is you provide a dedicated pipe to IoT, wherein only IoTs will communicate. That will be lot of users, very small data packets, and they need low latency. Like it sends immediately, it should reach the mobile edge, and that should go to cloud and update telling them, yes, this parking lot is free or occupied. Whereas a video broadcasting require a huge bandwidth and also low latency. Otherwise, when you view the picture, there will be blurriness. This is what is the difference between splicing of network and beaming for beamforming.
Okay. Next, the last question is, what will be the total estimated cost of 5G in India?
Now 5G means multiple things, right? It is difficult to tell what would be the total cost. I mean, what I would say is, let's split into multiple parts. Let's talk about a user equipment, which is your cell phone or IoT device or a CCTV camera. The costing will not change much. The mobile phones will be available at a similar cost to a typical 4G, because the 5G is not adding many stuff, which is, I mean, hardware into a mobile phone. Nothing much is going to change. The software, the advantage of software is costing never burdens the user equipment. In terms of network infrastructure, it is huge. The people will have to move from your traditional transmission switches to a packet core network, so which will have a lot of MPLS switches and routers. So, and the routers will have to operate at a very high speed, and the connectivity will increase. So typically, if I really look at it, a networking gear which used to cost 2 lakhs today, in a edge and access will cost like 6 to 8 lakhs. So it is basically around 3 to 4% hike in the edge or access, and almost 10 to 20% hike in the core network.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering all the queries. Hope everyone participant got a clear idea about the 5G. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
In addition, I mean, you can share my mail ID. If there are offline questions, I will try to answer. And I would like to thank IMPA for providing me this opportunity to, I mean, this is the first time I have done a virtual conference. Usually, whenever I did, actually, I face the audience. So it's a different experience for me. And since this is happening in the beginning of an year, I hope it will be fruitful to me and fruitful to others. And thank you, Presidency, HOD, and other ladies who have facilitated this. And from my bottom of heart, thank you very much for providing me an opportunity to speak to people.
Yeah, ma'am. Over to you, Pavitra ma'am.
Yes, thank you, sir, for this wonderful and informative session. And we are highly delighted by the information delivered by you, sir. It made us to think on the problems that can be solved using 5G. Thank you so much for your valuable time as well, sir.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. Divakaran, sir, to deliver vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Very good afternoon to all present here, and on behalf of the Department of CSE and of President University, Dr. Vasant Kumar sir, it gives an immense pleasure for me to welcome you, as well as our heartfelt thanks to you for giving a wonderful speech on the latest trend of the present next generation 5G. Thank you so much, sir. And I would like to thank the management and the higher officials who has given the support for us on motivating and encourage us to do such a kind of event. And I would like to thank our HOD sir to give an enthusiasm to all of us to go about with this kind of event then and there. And once again, my request to you, Dr. Vasant Kumar sir, in future also, we will go about and let me try to have a long-term association among ourselves to see that where our academicians, they will get the benefit out of your no outcome what you're getting on this particular platform. So
Sure,
I
sir.
wish to thank, I wish to thank all our no, our entire organizing team. Always they used to have an very cooperative action in getting the things done. So to Vinita Dominic, Shalin Bhatnagar, Pavitra madam and Impa madam. So I wish to thank all other attendees, those who have got the benefit out of it. I hope so. In future also, as what our Dr. Vasant Kumar sir mentioned, offline you can also interact with him through mail so that you can clear your doubts. Thank you one and all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you, HOD sir.
Thank you. Now, last part, ma'am, Vinita ma'am, please post the link for feedback link as well. Participants, please fill the feedback link so that you will receive certificate in 3-4 days. Before that, big thank you to HOD sir and Dr. Divakaran sir for providing all the required support and for your valuable time, sir. Thank you. And
Welcome, madam.
yes, sir. Thank you all attendees for participating in this event and making successful. And my special thanks to IEEE Student Chapter faculty coordinators, Mrs. Shalin ma'am and Mrs. Vinita ma'am for all the support given in organizing this event and without facing any flaws in between. And thank you for your huge support. It made us to organize this event in a really smooth manner. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, anything from your side? Shalin ma'am and Vinita ma'am? Shalin ma'am?
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful anchoring, and thank you, team. And dear participants, I have pasted the feedback link. Kindly fill the feedback. You will get the certificate within 3 working days. Thank you so much, Vasant Kumar sir. Thank you, HOD sir, and thank you, Divakaran sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, madam.
Yes.
Thank you to Vinita madam and Shalin madam.
Thank you. Ma'am, one more thing. Shall we end the meeting
Yes.
or we will be live for some more time?
No, ma'am. We are winding up the session.
Okay.
And we are going offline. Yeah. Thank you.
Ma'am, the link is just now posted, so we'll wait.
We will paste the same link in Telegram group as well, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining for this wonderful session. Good day. Signing off. This is Pavitra. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.